I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. I'm sorry, atheists, but the worldview that you hold is simply wrong. That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. We're having a little discussion with our friends who don't believe in God or don't know whether there's a God or not. And we began by sort of laying out the historicity of the Christian faith, the reasonableness of it, that something happened in Jerusalem in AD 30, which has changed the world, that spread like wildfire throughout Western Europe and into Africa. And the only thing which stopped it was the force of Islam, pushing back on it and conquering it by force, something that this religion refused to do. That there was a Jesus of Nazareth who taught and preached and did miraculous signs, that the news of that is both in the Gospels and also in pagan writings, sort of talking about what the Gospels say and what the eyewitness accounts say, and that this Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate and died. One thing is for certain, Romans know how to kill people, and they killed this Jesus. But after 3 days, this Jesus was nowhere to be found. And then he started appearing to his disciples. First to Mary Magdalene and his mother, also to the disciples, the 12, and then the 500 other ones, and then to to Paul, Saul, who was the greatest persecutor of the church. And then all these folks, save John, died. Terrible lives, deaths, terrible deaths. We set that argument aside and just let's sort of handle the worldview that everything is explainable and that everything is scientific and that we're going to only base our conclusions on scientific evidence and conclusions that are rational and sensible in our own minds. The problem with that is that we come up against, in a very short time, things that we simply cannot explain, and events that simply are unexplainable. Big Bang physicists reach a point in which they don't know what caused the Big Bang. And some of them even reach a conclusion outside of the Christian faith that there must have been a Big Banger. It's a joke. An intelligent designer. That's not even Christianity. And they're not even in the faith of Christ. But they reach that conclusion. And they're scientists. There are theories about how life began have evolved and changed, no pun intended, with more evidence, to the point in which when I was growing up, it was life began with a lightning strike in sort of complex proteins and amino acids in a goo, to now Earth was so unhospitable that life must have come from an asteroid that came from Mars. Again, that's okay because science is ever changing in its view. But to say that with certainty, that we know where we came from, is simply bad science and not reasonable. To say that we know what happens after death with certainty, 100% certainty, is arrogant presumption. We only know of one person who died and came back from the dead and lives still. We can reject him, but what do we do then? Are we really to believe that we have got it all figured out and that we can answer all the questions of life and meaning and all that by simply saying, well, I just simply refuse to believe that there's a divine God? And the idea that you can't prove a negative and therefore dismissing the argument that prove to me that there isn't a God is again foolishness. Show me the evidence that there isn't a God. You can't. So how can you reach the conclusion that there isn't a God? And I don't mean to sort of mock it. It's just arrogant. Doctors come out and say, I do not know why this person lived. Emergency workers pull people out and tell people you should have died. I don't understand why you're alive. One house is saved while another house is destroyed. What? Luck? Divine fortune? Random happenstance? There's a lot of randomness to the perfect order of this universe. Are we really to believe that there's nothing behind it? When we can't even explain the daily things that occur in our lives with 100% certainty. Sooner or later, we have to realize that there must be something more. Either because of awe or because of just understanding that that we are flawed and this can't be all that there is. But again, if that's your worldview, then you will never, ever, ever, by any sort of argument on reason, come to any sort of faith, because your faith is in your worldview. But that's a different topic entirely. Today's topic, we just taken a look at the worldview and the flaws in it. And simply saying, is this really where you want to put your faith in? Do you really want to put your faith in the idea that you understand and have a grasp on everything? If you do, here's to you. And if you don't, well, we can have a conversation about the one born of Mary who suffered and died and rose again from the dead. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this has been another Higher Things video short.